Your children should be bored. When I'm saying children, I mean like kids before high school, before adolescent.
Okay.
Okay. They need that time to be bored because they need space to be creative. I call it, you got it, parents, they got to get over the hump. Okay. So this is the hump. The hump is when your kid's out there playing and you're saying, go play. In 2 minutes, they come back to you. I'm bored. I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And you say, you got to stay strong, parents. You got to say, go away, go back. And then they'll come back 5 minutes later. And they say, we don't know what to do. We're blah, 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 blah. Then they go away. And then they go outside and you lock the door. You lock the door. They can't come and talk to you anymore.
Welcome to the Ferris Love Podcast. Here we explore spiritual insights and practical strategies to help you cultivate a family life rooted in beautiful, self-giving love. Join us as we invite experts to share uplifting perspectives and actionable advice for navigating the joys and challenges of modern family dynamics.
Welcome back to the Ferris Love Podcast. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Today I am joined by Mike and Alicia from the Messy Family Project. How are you guys doing today?
It is great to be with you, April. Doing great.
Yeah, it's absolutely summertime, and kids are home, new schedules, all of that
Craziness, chaos.
Yeah, it's a little crazy chaos as normal, but it's par for the course of family life.
We love it. We love it all, and plus, it's just the seasons of the year. Every season is a little bit different.
Yes, love it, and it's also too just for I think there's new things, new adventures, new experiences. And we don't want to let things just linger and not take advantage of them. So summer's a great time
100%.
for slowing down a little bit.
100%. Yeah. For any of our listeners who may not be familiar with you, could you share a little bit about yourselves, your family, and the heart behind the Messy Family Project?
Yes. So we're Mike and Alicia Hernan. We've been married for 32 years, something like that, 30 some odd years. And
34 years.
34 years, give or take. And we have 10 children and actually 10 grandchildren. And we have actually been doing this podcast for a little over 10 years. And
so we're like 10, 10, 10.
10s are, this is the year of 10s, right? And but our hope is that both in the podcast and some of the free resources and courses we offer to families, that we speak to busy moms and dads to try to become more intentional with their marriage and family life.
Yeah, and we are just really passionate about supporting Catholic parents because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who speak about maybe the spiritual life, or a lot of people that even speak to marriage, but there's so few solid resources for Catholic parents. And so as parents ourselves who now have adult children, and over the past 10 years of really the podcast has been us like raising our kids, the younger ones, because our children right now are 30 to 13. We started the podcast, our youngest was 3 and our oldest was 20. So yeah, it's been quite a journey and we've been really learning a lot, and we're really passionate about supporting Catholic parents.
That's amazing. And I didn't know that you had been podcasting for so long.
I know. I cannot believe it has been 10 years.
Because we say in the first year.
100%. We were like, can we do this for a year or two? Yeah. It's like 10 years later, like we're still finding things to talk about.
And here we are.
Yes. Yeah. So it's been really, really interesting. I think we also started podcasting when podcasting was not very popular. So we kind of caught a wave, if you will, so we're trying to continue to stay ahead of the trends.
Well, there's always things to say. I mean, parenting is ever changing and there's always new things getting thrown at people. So I guess that makes sense. But 10 years still sounds long because like you said, you probably got into it before podcasting was a thing. I mean, it was obviously a thing, but before it became popular. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So you guys obviously have a ton of experience with being busy because with 10 kids, that's inevitable. But it feels like parenting and childhood today has just gotten super scheduled and supervised and structured.
Yeah.
And it's more than it's ever been. What do you think is like lost by not letting kids just be kids? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
All right. So there was this book that I read last summer that introduced this concept, which it kind of like this book, like put into words, something I had always felt like intuitively. And it was called The Gardener and the Carpenter. And the thesis of the book was basically that modern parents and modern parenting treats raising children like a carpenter. You
Mm.
have this, here's the instructions. You measure this. You have them read for this
Precise
many. It's very
plans.
precise. You have them, read for this many. You have them do this at this amount of time. You don't just follow this plan and your kid will turn out, boom, like a chair. Like I just built a chair according to the direction. That's a lie. That's such a
The
lie.
human person is not
A
an
human
engineering
person
project.
is way more complicated than that. Being a parent is more like being a gardener, where you provide an environment and you teach the human person, give them that environment in which they can explore and they can be creative. And it's through that they develop resiliency. So that, I think, is the problem with having an overscheduled childhood, because children, number one, need to be bored. They have to be bored. Your children should be bored. And now and I also want to qualify this. When I say children, I mean children before adolescence. There's a whole other way of treating teenagers and their life and how their life is. And so that may be for a different podcast.
Yeah.
So when I'm saying children, I mean like kids before high school, before adolescence.
Okay.
Okay. They need that time to be bored because they need space to be creative. When kids are bored, what they will do, they will, I call it, it's like you got it, parents, they got to get over the hump. Okay. So this is the hump. The hump is when your kid's out there playing and you're saying, go play. In 2 minutes, they come back to you. I'm bored. I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And you say, you got to stay strong, parents. You got to say, go away, go back. And then they'll come back 5 minutes later and they say, we don't know what to do. We're blah, 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 blah. Then they go away. And then they go outside and you lock the door. You lock the door. They can't come and talk to you anymore. But seriously, if your kids are gone, if they get over that hump, which takes about 10 or 15 minutes, they will play for hours, literally hours, because they will figure out, they'll figure out what to do and get into their little world of making something or pretend play, or they will figure it out. And then, but you parents have got to get over that hump and don't give up so quickly.
Yeah.
Just to kind of add to this notion, the idea of the gardener, if you've ever been a gardener, you're very active. It's not like you just sit back and you're just like, well, whatever will happen. We're not talking about full free range parenting, not like there's no involvement. Parents in our garden, we need to till the soil. We need to make sure there's the right fertilizers. We need to prune and trim, right?
Yes.
But we pray for the rain. We pray for the sunshine, right? And there is a lot that's out of our control. But when we give up trying to control everything and focus in on what we can do, and one of the most potent things that we can do, which is really the garden itself, is the culture of your home. What are the habits, the rituals and traditions, pegs, if you will, that are keeping your family life oriented towards life, oriented towards joy, oriented towards the good, the beautiful, the true, right? And it's like those things is what sets your kids apart. Yes, of course, you need to form them. Yes, of course, you need to correct them. But our hope is that we're building a culture where we're getting our kids to say yes to virtue more than we're simply harping on them about saying no to the vice or other things. Again, both are needed, but we want to create a culture where it is easier for them to say yes. And even the simple thing like boredom, again, summer's a perfect time. Practice this, because then it becomes a tradition in your home that I will be self-reliant in developing fun, being creative, working and collaborating with others. It creates a deep sense of that self-respect, self-reliance that is essential for their growth, and in little ways, right? Not in throw them in drop them in New York City, but in your backyard, right? Where they're safe and they can grow and they can explore,
or in your basement or in the bedroom or whatever.
right?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm now that you have grandkids, I'm sure you're getting to watch the stages of childhood all over again. But even if you watch like a young child play and they're really in the world of imagination, it's so fun and it's so sweet to see. I love what you said about just shutting the kids outside of the house, even if they keep coming back, as something my mom always did when if I ever said I was bored, she says, I have a whole list of jobs that I need you to
Oh,
get done.
yes.
And then I
Use that too.
run away so quick.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. Yeah,
Smart
that's
mama.
always good to have a long list of things they can do.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
don't figure out
She's
something.
like, you can wash the windows if you
Yeah.
would like. And then I had a childhood friend, her mom would always say, only boring people get bored. And her
Mhm.
daughter was like, I'm not a boring person. And so she'd go and run off and
That's
do
awesome.
something else.
So-
Very good.
But yeah, I think that's such a great point. I want to touch on real quick. So you now have grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so that means you're seeing your children take on the world of parenting. Has this culture of packing things into a schedule, has it changed since when you were parents, or
Mm.
is it pretty much the same?
No, I believe it is more challenging to be a parent today than ever before. I mean, parenting is challenging no matter what, right?
Right.
All time, it's going to put you in a challenging, uncharted territories for anybody. But today, and it's not purely this, but technology, social media for parents has created a host of experts. Like there's this tyranny of experts that are like, if you don't raise your child this way, you will psychologically, irreparably damage your child. And then you have another one saying the exact opposite, but you're going to damage your. And so parents are for more than ever before have access to all this stuff when what they really probably need is an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor who is like, hey, somebody to talk to who is a human person who isn't giving you this theory, but is giving you lived wisdom about your child, right? And so technology is connecting us in some ways more with other people, but it's also separating us because we run a virtual ministry, right? We have 30, 40,000 people listening to us, to our show, but they are all over the world and they sometimes feel alone.
Yeah.
And as parents, I think in spite of the remarkable connectedness we can feel through our technology, people feel more and more alone than ever before. And I think that creates a sense that I'm the only one. Therefore, I need this expert and I don't have a model to follow, which is, I think, in part why the podcast has continued. People are like, they're looking for something. So anyway, I do believe that it's more difficult than ever before to be a parent. And when we see our kids, there are more competitions, if you will, and there's like kind of mom guilt that is kind of put on steroids. I think moms always may have struggled with that guilt.
Moms always struggle with comparing, I think.
Yeah.
Comparing to other moms. And now social media, even if you use it casually, still kind of feeds into that comparison.
Right.
And even if you're not on social media, just the fact that probably the people who are around you are on social media. So there is like naturally like this, I think just women do that. Like we
for
compare.
sure.
And sometimes we compare and it can be a good thing because we compare. And so you get ideas from other women, you model, you see how you like how somebody does something. So you're like, okay, I want to try that too. And so there's a good skill in that, but we have to be really careful that doesn't come into, oh, I feel bad about myself.
It creates
or
false
I'm-
expectations.
Exactly. It's false expectations. And so I think that we have to be really careful about that. And so I think that also makes it more difficult to be a parent. And basically the supports that parents had always counted on, meaning community, really. I mean, in the past, it was not just my responsibility to raise my child, but as a member of this community, I would care about how all of the children in my community are being raised because we're all dependent upon each other ultimately, right? I mean, really, that was the idea for the founding of public schools because public schools they would see them as like a good for the community. It's a good,
at least in theory.
In theory, that's
In
where
theory,
it started. Like that's why anybody would, because there's an inherent good in my community that I am helping raise the children of my community in a sense. And well, now people are more and more isolated. So not only do we not have anyone caring about each other's children, but we have more criticism than ever. Most people don't even know who their neighbors are, let alone my neighbor is and is a support for me in raising my kids. Like when I was little and I would be running around in all the backyards in my neighborhood, I knew all my neighbors and I
Mhm.
learned things, like I remember getting yelled at by one of my neighbors, when I was little because I like took apart this bridge that they were like building. It was like made of rock or something like that. And it's like, okay, that's an important lesson, you know.
Mhm.
And I don't mean yelled at in a mean way, but I mean he was just like, hey, you can't do that,
Yeah.
whatever. Or just like being in their homes and learning about, okay, people are different than me. All of these things, there's supports that are really no longer there in most places. And so I think when parents look around, they're like, gosh, this is so hard to do this. I think it's like, yeah, yes, it is. It is so hard. It is something that's difficult to do. And there's nothing wrong with you for thinking that, because I think that you have less and less of even the values around the values
That
that are
support us.
surrounding.
Yes.
You used to be able to make an assumption of what people believed if they went to your school or they went to your parish or whatever. You could assume that you shared some values. We can't assume that anymore. And that makes
Mm.
it even more difficult for parents to communicate their values, because not only do we not have people supporting us, but a lot of some values that are out there are actually antithetical to what we're trying to teach our children.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a huge difference today than in the past. And that's one of the reasons why we do what we do, why we're so passionate about it, is because we realize that parents need a lot of encouragement. They need a lot of encouragement, and they need to know where to go to get what they're missing, and then how to start trying to find that for their family so they can really grow within their own family and make their family stronger.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, with this lack of a village and Mike, to your point of just having an aunt or a grandparent to talk to, and this isolation, it creates this mentality that they have a special situation and that they're different and that they are dealing with something that nobody else has ever dealt with, which I think can be kind of damaging because it's a big world, and if you are having an issue with your child throwing a tantrum in the middle of the grocery store, there is a 99% chance that there are multiple mothers out there who are dealing the exact same thing. But if you
Yeah.
isolate yourself from the village or from the experienced mother who's like, "Oh yeah, they do that all the time. I just ignore it and it usually stops."
Right.
That can create this over anxious parent who doesn't know what to do.
That's so true. So
Yeah.
true. Yeah, there's the book Anxious Generation about kids, but I think there's
Mhm.
an anxious generation of parents.
Yeah.
That and again, there's something beautiful about wanting to be the best parent, to give
Mhm.
your best and to do the right thing for your kids.
Yeah.
But it becomes this false expectation that then makes parent
Right.
too quickly, too often, that they become a failure. And then it's all this shame, and then there's this burden, and there's this weight, as opposed to saying, hey, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, I'm going to learn from people who are wise, who actually, I mean, ideally finding a couple who's like, okay, their adult children are what I want. They've got
Mhm.
good outcomes, if you will,
Yeah.
and you've been fruitful as a family. I want to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah.
What does
Mhm.
that look like? Walk with me, journey with me. Would you be willing to help me be the parent that I ought to be and not stress out about all these things? Because I feel like we're much more peaceful in our parenting today because we've weathered a number of storms. We know
Mm.
what's really vital and
Yeah.
really important,
Yeah.
as opposed to stressing out about every single item and checking off a list, if you will.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That actually leads perfectly into the next question, which is we've talked about the benefit of letting kids be kids and how it helps with their competency and it will help them function better into adulthood if they're bored and are able to figure things out. But for the parent who's thinking, well, wait, if my kid comes back covered in mud, I have to deal with that. But how can letting kids be kids benefit the overall family life?
Well, because I feel like everybody in the family has a role to play on this path to holiness, because that's really what parenting is. Okay. Parenting is not about having the outcome of a college educated, successful, even holy child. Like, that's really not what parenting's about. Parenting is about my path to holiness. It's about
My
making
gift.
me holy.
Mhm.
How does God want to form me through my children? And if letting your kids go out to play and they come back really muddy, if that is irking you, if that's angering you, if that's, causing you unrest or to be dysregulated, that's something to think about. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on there? Why am I so upset about this? What is it? What is it in me that is making me react in this way? And then after that, you can say, well, what is best for this child? What is best for this child? Because there's been so many times. I mean, talk about inconveniences. Children they are born inconveniences. Like they just always are. They are like, we joke around sometimes. Sometimes we just look at each other and go, children are the worst.
Who decided this was a good idea?
Exactly.
We love them. They're wonderful, right?
Of course, of course, I would never give any one of them back. But I have to die to me,
Mhm.
I have to say no to what I want to do and to say yes to somebody else. And so, yes, sometimes you do have to manage the chaos, like exactly like the image of the child coming back like all muddy. It's like, okay, if this is a good thing for them to play outside, how can we manage this better to make my life more manageable, which is completely appropriate to say, right? But what's the easiest thing? You're going to have a perfectly clean house. Stick your kid in the middle of a room and put on a screen for him. Because guess what?
Mm.
Screens don't make a mess. TVs don't make a mess. You can be in a perfectly pristine room
Lock
and
them
have
down.
your kids look at screens all day and have their minds melt into mush. That is the alternative. So I would always think about that, about like, what is the cost benefit ratio, if you will,
Mhm.
of like, okay, yes, sometimes screens are great if I'm going to be making dinner and I need I need 30 minutes of quiet
Yeah.
to do whatever. Okay, fine. We can put on a show or all of that. But what is the benefit to my child for making them go outside and play, for having my house get dirty, for having like a craft room that's like chaotic or whatever?
Mhm.
What is the benefit to the child? And is that an appropriate cost to me? And if that's really what the goal of parenting is, always kind of keeping in mind, okay, what are my needs, right? What are the needs of our marriage? We got to take care of this relationship here too. And
Yeah.
keeping that in priority order to then what is the best thing for my child. Because
Mhm.
all of those things, they're not, we would say it's like it's impossible to have a balanced life. We're not talking about a balanced life, but what we're talking about is having a ordered life.
Right.
Okay, what is my
Mhm.
top priority? What is my next priority? What is my next priority? And really having a clean house is really after the formation of children. Like that is
Mhm.
like really should be like your fifth priority. And so it's really, we talk about this a lot. One of the structure of our podcast is, the spiritual life of your home, your marriage, formation of children, development of the gifts of everyone in the home, and then your family operations, which is your household. And you know what?
Mhm.
Chores and
The cleanliness of your house is not as important as the formation of your children developing their gifts. So those are
which
all
is one of
things
the
to kind
reasons
of
we
keep in
call
mind.
it messy family podcast, right?
That is not one of the
No,
reasons.
and
I don't know. It's like
in
not like
some
our
ways,
house is messy.
no. But it's putting first things first.
Yeah.
It's saying what really matters. Like one of our maxims is that you need to protect your yes to marriage and family life with 1,000
Mhm.
no other good things, right? And we're not choosing between this is evil and this is good. Well, that's not really a choice. It's easy to say we're choosing the good, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
good things we could be doing. And we need to be able to say, no, I'm prioritizing this. I'm saying
Mhm.
yes to date nights with my spouse. I'm saying yes to family prayer. I'm saying yes to family dinners. The formation of our kids needs to be before some of these other things that in a way we might be saying lower your standard, in the cleanliness of your house.
Mhm.
If it is taking away, now again, if you are really all about is a real deep value, if you make that work, of course you can make
Yeah.
it work, but put it in priority.
Yeah.
People are always more important than things. And that's what we need as parents to do. And because as we said, parents, I believe have never been more busy, and our economy and the life often demands
Yes.
both parents to be working and all these different things.
Yeah.
We are busy, so we have a limited amount of time. What are we doing with that time? How are we ordering the limited time we have for our marriage, for our
Mhm.
family, for the formation of our children, for the spiritual life in the home, for the culture that we're building?
Mhm.
We're using that wisely. God can do amazing things when we give it to him, when we put our best efforts in. It's kind of like, your budget will go if you're not paying attention. All your money will be spent
Yeah.
without you even think of it. If you're just swiping the card, oh, it's just kind of funny money, and you don't think. But if
Mhm.
you have a budget and you say, "This is our plan of how we're going to spend our money. We're going to put money aside for savings. We're going to put money aside for retirement." Or are you putting time aside for your
Yeah.
marriage? Are you
Mhm.
on a weekly basis, are you saying, "My spouse is important and you can see it on my schedule. My children and their formation matters and you can see it on my schedule." We're Catholic. We believe in prayer and depending on God. Where is that in our life? And once you make those priorities, that's when you can see the whole benefit for the home. And that's where your culture is then forming your kids. And that's a dynamic power that really is even more powerful than anything any one of us can do as parents on our own.
Yeah, that's great. And I love your comment about just prioritizing, making sure that the things that are most important are at the top of the priority list. And sometimes having a spotless house is not one of those things. Now, you mentioned all these different great priorities that you have as a Catholic, being a parent and focusing on your own faith life. I'm sure there are a couple of parents listening that are like, this sounds great. I don't even know how we begin to do this. How did it look in the ordering of all of this and prioritizing what needed to be prioritized? What did that look like when you were in the midst of parenting 10 kids? Like,
Uh,
how did you prioritize your spouse when you were in the thick of things?
Mhm.
yeah.
So usually the first advice that we give to people is you have to make sure that you're connecting with your spouse every day without the
Mm,
children. You can't just be hitting the ground and you're like swept up in the chaos of the home. You have
yeah.
to have some kind of rhythm, some kind of routine within the home in regards to when do the children get out of bed and when are the children in bed. Because
Mm,
once that bedtime routine is solidified, that gives mom and dad either time before the kids get up or time at the end of the day to have some real connection with each other. I mean, that is the key. By the time our 10th child was born, our oldest was 17. And so
mm,
we were able to leave the house in the mornings. We would just go for a walk. We would walk
yeah.
around our block. And that's when we would talk about our day and we would kind of like plan out, okay, like what's the game plan, for today. And that was our time to connect every single day. And then we would have at least once a month a time where we're going out, where we're leaving the house. So we have 10 children, but I'm from a family of 10. And I remember my parents were religious about their Friday night date night. Every single
Mm,
Friday, they always left the house. They went out together. Sometimes they would go to like a prayer meeting. Sometimes they would just go out with friends. Sometimes they would go out by themselves. But they did that very, very consistently. And so I think things like that, as far as connecting with your spouse, is so very
mhm.
important. And then supporting each other in your walk with the Lord, because none of us have what it takes to do Catholic family life.
Right. It's
None of
impossible.
Yeah.
us.
It's
It is
humanly
it
impossible.
is human. It is impossible. What God is calling us to is impossible without his grace. And
Yeah.
so we really have to be supporting our husbands, supporting our wives in having their own personal time of prayer. Maybe it's 15 minutes a day. Maybe it's a holy hour once a week. Maybe it's just a daily mass once a week. Whatever
Yeah.
you can do. But this takes you guys to step back, have a conversation, do an assessment of where are we at in our family, and then how can we make some goals together? So we actually have a course called the Family Board Meeting that
Mm,
walks couples through this process. It's on our website all the
yeah.
time on demand, but then we also have a live course coming up in mid-July where we're going to be live mentoring couples during that time. So it's really, really important that we have some time to step back and to assess our family life, because childhood, even though the days are long, childhood goes really, really
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah. Moves
Yeah. And
quickly. Just Mike, was there something you
no,
wanted
no,
to add?
she covered it all. But just on that last note of childhood goes quickly, there is a reality that we have 18 summers. So however old your
Mm,
child, because we're in the summertime, there are
yeah.
18 summers. Subtract that from where your kids are and say, what are we doing with the time that we have? What are the
Hmm.
experiences? What are the habits? What are the traditions? What are the things that we want to do? And they should look different as our kids age, as they mature, as they grow, and recognize that you don't have to all figure it out, but the sooner you start a habit in your home, the longer it will impact you. But really, the most essential thing is that husband and wife, that mom and dad are on the
Hmm.
same page and they have a vision, and they're
Yeah.
seeking God's blessing for their family. They're living according to his plans, but they're seeking his blessing and bringing that into their home. And they're inviting their children to be a part of something great, because
Mhm.
seeing our adult kids right now, maybe I just wrap up on this
Yeah.
idea, but seeing our adult children and seeing them raising their kids in the faith, bringing them to church, teaching them to pray. We were just with some of our grandkids earlier, and the joy that we have far outstrips the sleepless nights and the
Hmm.
whether it's waiting up for the teenager or up with a crying baby or
Yeah.
in the midst of the survival zone with lots of little kids. All of those sacrifices are worth it, and
Mhm.
you can do it by God's grace. We're not perfect. We're far from perfect. That's one of the big reasons we call it the messy family party. We don't feel
Yeah.
like we have it all together, but what we've seen is that it can work. It is possible, and that it is something so worth it, because this, I believe, is God's plan both for us and our holiness, but also for the renewal for our children and the world. God is saving, I believe, the world one family at a time.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to ask, what was a fun summer tradition that you did with your family that really made your summer special?
Well, anything to do with water. So just shortly after the COVID lockdowns, we got a pool in our backyard, and we would have, was it Friday? What do we call it?
Cousin day on Fridays.
Cousin days on Friday. So we'd have all our kids and the grandkids over, and we'd be swimming, and it was just
Well,
like,
that's what we do now.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But raising the children, we didn't have a pool when we raised the kids.
Well,
But
it
one of
depends on
the
which kids you're talking about.
yeah, that's true. But when we had all of the 10 kids at home, we usually every summer, I think that one tradition that probably all sticks out for all of them is July 4th. We would always
Ah.
get together with my extended family and get together at my aunt's house and have a huge family gathering. And that was it was like epic every year, and I think that that's for most of our kids, that's a huge tradition that was in their hearts and really kind of emphasized to them the importance of our country, and
Mhm.
recognizing that, but also of family
Yeah.
and their aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents. And it was a sacrifice to go, because it was far away, but it was always a great time
I
for
actually,
sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna change my answer. So I think one of the fun traditions our kids would say, and they have said, is we do a family retreat. And we've been doing it since the
Oh.
kids were little. And so we go away usually for a weekend or a long
Mhm.
weekend. But we do a ton of fun stuff. Like one of the things they always remember is we did a pie throwing contest, and but it was also these moments where we paired up kids to walk and get to know older kid getting to know a younger.
Mm.
We would pray together. We would have somebody share about their growth in their faith. All these little things. And we kept it very age appropriate. Some of it was just like a simple craft or a simple game. But as they got older, we had more depth and more sharing and more substance to the kind of evangelization that we're doing. But it was all mixed with fun. Because one of the,
Mhm.
the great things of our job as parents is to make the heavenly and the divine and the sacred incarnate in our home. Make it fun,
Yeah.
make it joyful. So they're like, I love being Catholic. This is what
Mhm.
it means. We celebrate and we have all the smells and bells at the liturgy, but we need in our homes to take that out and say, this is the fun, this is the joy, this is the fullness that we're all longing for, that we'll find in our perfect home in heaven.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I love both of those answers. For the parent listening right now, what one piece of advice that you would give them about in regards to encouraging them to slow down and allow rest to happen this summer, but then also fun and not to necessarily overschedule and overbook?
I think that parents need to not live their life according to the standards of the world. And a lot of times the world would say, these are the things that your kids should be doing. This is how they can be successful. And we have to really look at God's wisdom and really respect the developmental needs of the child. And that needs to be, yes, we do need to have a rhythm in our home for sure. But you also don't need to be getting up and leaving your home and scheduling things out all summer, because every time, every transition is that break in a child's concentration and in
Mhm.
the whatever they want to get done. And, because kids, you may think that kids don't have but any plans or they just go with the flow, but that's not true. Like some kind of rhythm and routine is really essential for the development of the person. And I think having those long stretches where they can be focused and playing and free play and not
Mhm.
have parents or adults hovering over them. Let them enjoy their own world. I think that
Yeah.
that's really, really important. And this is how we've gotten to the place where kids don't even know how to organize themselves anymore because they're so used to adults being around them
Mhm.
organizing any kind of play,
Yeah.
and that's just never in the history of the world, that has never, ever been how children were raised. Children were always in the orbit of adults, but adults were doing adult things, right? And kids were
Mhm.
doing kids things, and they were around each other in a very healthy manner, and it was good for everybody. So I just want to challenge parents. I know it's difficult. Again, like Mike said, like so many parents have a lot of economic challenges these days,
Yeah.
and they have to work and they have to have things scheduled for their kids. I get it, but make sure that you also schedule some time for kids to just be kids. And if you have somebody watching your kids, make sure that they know that, right?
Yeah.
That they need to have time to just be. Yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of tagging off of that idea of schedule, just look at your summer and say, when are the times that we are going to really play with our kids? That
Yeah.
whether
Mhm.
it be on vacation, whether it be every Sunday, whatever it might be, look at your summer before it elapses, before the like sand through your hands falls through
Mhm.
our schedule. Make time for things that matter most. When are you going to go out with your spouse? When are you going to really have some special time? Almost like take each and every one of the kids, maybe on a little date over this summer where you get to know them, particularly if they're growing up, if they're in their teen years or adolescent years, or there's a significant, moment coming up in their lives, right? Birthday or whatever. Carve out that time, plan out, not engineer every moment, but say, okay, these are the most important things we want to accomplish insofar as giving our love, giving of our time, and developing a richer family culture, and make time for that and protect it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy, for
That's
having.
great. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing all your wisdom. Where can people find you? Where can they find your courses? Give us all the details.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so visit us at messyfamilyproject.org. That's where you can find the download that Alicia talked about for the family board meeting, as well as a course for mothers and daughters, new and upcoming course for dads, and a whole bunch of other stuff, both free as well as the courses and the podcasts.
Great. And when will the course for dads be available?
We'll probably be looking at maybe the fall.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think that's the plan anyway, fall or
Very
early.
exciting.
Yeah, it is.
That's so cool. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Bears Love podcast. Mike and Alicia, thank you so much for your time again. We will see you guys next week.
God bless.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ferris Love podcast. In 2026, we continue to share the devotion to Mary, Mother of Ferris Love. If you like what you heard on today's show, please visit our website at ferrislovefamilyproject.org, where you can find additional podcasts and other resources for families. Be sure to also check us out on social media at Ferris Love Project. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on an episode soon.